Good morning and welcome to the 4th edition of Meet the Artist. The event is presented by Margazhi.org and is a sponsored initiative by Sarangi the store. Margazhi.org is an online platform to bring together people like us. Our special artist for the day is multi-talented. She's carved a unique space for herself in performing arts, literature, and culture. She has been a vocal accompaniment to M.S. Subbulakshmi. She has written multiple books for children and has translated plays translated various plays. In 2005, she founded JustUs Repertory, whose plays and productions have been staged across various countries. We have a show coming up next month. There's a US tour. In 2015, Sri Krishna Gana Sabha has awarded her the title of Nataka Chudamani for her contribution to theatre. And a fun fact, she conducted the Oli Chamber concert in collaboration with Margazhi at Sarangi back in 2012. And our moderator, Arbi, is a dancer trained in both classical and contemporary and has worked with our guest for many years now. So I'm going to let Arbi take over from here. Let's join our hands to welcome the amazing Gowri Ramnarayan.
The Meet the Artist mornings are something I look forward to every month, but this month is extra special because Dr. Gowri Ramnarayan is Gowri Akka to all of us. I have been a part of her production, the furniture in her living room, all of that for well over a decade now. So in many ways I've literally grown up in that house. And she is the reason why a lot of us even started acting in the first place. So today is very special, and I'm just going to. When I was talking to Gowri Akka yesterday, I told her to tell us lots of stories about growing up and all of that, because we all have stories, but very few of us can say and can tell them the way she does. So let's build up. Okay. But yeah, come on, Akila.
What?
Who can say stories better than her?
What?
See? Anyway, so let's start with growing up. You know, she for all of us, for those of you who are familiar with her and her work, or for those of you who have been following the build up to the event over the month, you know that she comes from a family which has been very involved with music and literature and all of that. So let's start with what it was like growing up in a home like that, and how it has translated into who you are today, and the stories. Those would be very nice, Gowri Akka, no?
I know, sometimes when people ask me this question, I become very nostalgic. And the other day I was listening to this beautiful song composed by Pandit Ravi Shankar in a film called Anuradha many years ago, the 70s. And there's a lovely song there which all of you should hear. Kaise din beete, kaisi beeti ratiyan, piya janina. I don't know how the days and the nights passed, Sometimes I wonder, I look back and I think, look back at the time I was growing up, how did that time pass by, And when you're right in that time, you don't realize its value. All of us have this experience, a universal experience. Then when you grow older and then you are working and then you recall all the values that you learned, you absorbed. It was an process of osmosis. Nobody actually sat down and told you, you have to do this or be this or think this. But the way they were and the way they conducted themselves, that's what seeps into you, right? I was exceptionally lucky. I would say that growing up in Kalakshetra, which is right here, in its growing years, it was quite established, but still it was a very different Kalakshetra from the government-owned Kalakshetra of today. The people who worked there, they were paid so little, but they never thought of money. They lived such a simple and austere life. And I remember Padru teacher who went around planting every tree in the garden, every tree in the space which was just sand, beside the ocean. And then today you have a wood there, So every one of them contributed like that, and it was so much fun because it was it was unusual for those days. I mean, it was a co-educational institution. So boys and girls were always falling in and out of love, and teachers were always telling them that they should not talk to boys and boys not talk to girls. And in spite of that, so many romances, and many of them are, most Kalakshatra people marry Kalakshatra people.
Exactly.
So I grew up not only with high philosophy of Rukmini Devi and a person like Shankar Menon sir and our wonderful teachers, my headmaster Krishna Ratnam sir. I mean, when we grew up with romance, we grew up with love, we grew up with so much beauty, with part of nature. Climbing trees was an everyday affair. Every one of us, we used to wear long skirts and blouses of those days, but it didn't prevent us from climbing every tree and reaching the top and sometimes yelling for the gardener to bring the ladder to come down, So, and that was one thing. I have to share one lovely story from my school, and I think that one story will tell you the kind of atmosphere in which I grew. We had a wonderful headmaster called Krishna Ratnam. He was very tall and very commanding kind of person. One day, we used to have classes under the trees. Every tree had a blackboard under it, and then we just go there and do classes. So one day before the maths class began, I climbed the mango tree under which we had the class, and I didn't know how to come down. I was too young, and I must have been about 6 or 7. And I didn't know how to come down. So the maths teacher came and he didn't notice that, and all the children were laughing and giggling and looking up and everything. And finally, he just looked up and saw me perched there, a very strange bird on top of that tree. And he was so angry, he marched straight to the headmaster's room, brought him there and said, "Sir, look at this girl. I cannot teach hooligans like this. She's a Hanuman. I cannot teach these people, monkeys, And he just let loose his anger, So the headmaster just looked up at me and said, "Gowri, do you know how to come down?" I said, "No, I'm stuck here." He said, "The gardener has gone out on an errand. It will take him 20 minutes to come. Just hang on, hold on to that branch, don't fall off. When he comes, I'll send him with a ladder and he'll bring you down." And then he turned to the teacher and said, "She may be on top of the tree, but she's not deaf. She can hear you. Continue." And walked off. So this was the world in which I grew up. And I can also tell you that the teachers in Kalakshetra, the musicians, some of the greatest musicians were teachers there, And they were composing music for Rukmini Devi's path-breaking dance dramas. But they were so simple, You can't imagine how accessible they were and how we took them for granted. We thought of them as very annoying grandfathers, And I would be just walking past, and somebody would just call me and say, Lektori or Rajagopala Sharma sir or M.D. Ramanathan or anyone, just call me and say, "Gowri, come and sit here." And then I would be going to climb some tree or pluck some mangoes or whatever, do our own mischief, right? So you're dragged there and made to sit there in front of this musician, and slowly they will unwind their tuft and tie it up and then say, "Listen, I have composed this song. You hear me sing and you tell me whether you like it." 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And these are all giants, And I remember the first song that was composed for Rukmini Devi's Kurmavataram, like that. I heard it first before Rukmini Devi heard it. If anybody else had passed by, it's not just me, any other child who passed by, they will just yank that child in front. And if you ask them all, they tell you their own stories like this. I remember Ramaswamy Iyengar, and I'll stop with this story, teaching in class. Ramaswamy Iyengar was a forgotten musician now. He was the disciple of Tiger Varadacharya, who was a legend, okay? And he was teaching under the tree again, and these children were all sitting in front of him. Little kids, 7, 8, 9 years old. And he was teaching this Shri Varalakshmi. And one of the girls from Ceylon couldn't get that song at all. She couldn't get the beat, she couldn't get the note, she couldn't get the tune, nothing. So he was really getting more and more frustrated. And then he said, "The Rukmini Amma, yaralla in class kanchi in the pran edukara." She said, "She's just killing me." And then finally he said, he told her, "Puriya pakkadu." He said, "Shri Sarasapate." And he grabbed a fistful of sand and put it on her lap. She had a skirt, she was sitting there. Shri Sarasapate, Rasapate, Sapate, pate, pate. You got it? You know, she picked up her skirt with all this sand, started crying and walking away. And then he ran behind and said, "Yo, ma, nothing, don't worry, nothing. I'm sorry, come back." So every day was fun and adventure. It was a simple way of life, a very but these great musicians, they taught their best to little kids. You know, they did not shortchange us. So they didn't think of the end result. But teaching, they liked music, they sang and they taught you, you know. And this was so with dance also. So I'm going to stop here with Kalakshitra.
So I was going to come back to the music as we were talking, but let's talk about the music now, because since we have been talking about all the under the tree singing. So Gowri, when somebody looks at your productions, even for people who are not familiar with theatre, the first thing that comes to their mind is the music in her productions are beautiful. To a point where when I think of 90% of your work, the body of your theatre work, I can't disassociate the music from it. It's almost like when you are writing, you already know what the background score is going to be. So let's talk a little bit about your musical journey and your years singing with MS. And you as a musician, she also, in a lot of instances, Gauriaka also writes, notates the tunes for a lot of the music in her productions. And she very closely works with the musicians. She knows exactly what she wants, and they are also directed, but they're given freedom, yes, just like the actors. But they are also directed because she knows exactly what she had in mind. And being a playwright, I think the music is such an integral part of the writing process almost. So could we talk about that a bit now?
You know, this in India, every performing arts is associated with music, whether it's dance or theatre or anything. Even a man with a monkey on the street, it's a performing art. Making it dance. So even that, and so I think we are a very musical race. And when I write my plays, I think this may be unusual because I have learned music before I started writing plays. That was so much a part of me. So when I write my plays, what I do is I think actually they're simultaneous. There's almost a parallel script of music. It happened right from the beginning of my first play. But the point is, I think it's because, see, there are so many things that words cannot say. This might have even been because of my inadequacy, because, so many things I cannot say with words. But one single phrase of music will communicate that. So you have this music going as a back score, as somebody speaking or moving or, acting. But you also have it as a dialogue by itself. And so they're not always the same things. Sometimes the actor is saying something and the music is saying something else. So it's up to you to discover those paradoxes. But if you can see it in some of my work, at least I think like that. And in fact, I think the best way to express it is with the play that I just finished writing. It's a 3-act play, 3-scene play about Pandit Ravi Shankar and his life. Of course, it's not a chronological development. It's about I have looked at this man asking questions about himself. What has he achieved? He's at the peak of glory. He's a pop icon. He is one of the greatest Indian classical musicians. He's faced so much criticism in his country, outside his country, everywhere. He's had such a tumultuous life. So many tragedies, He's done so many he's committed so many mistakes. His romances are legend, of course. So a girl in every port, and it has joy and it also has heartbreaks, right? So looking at a man looking at himself. So I decided that right from the beginning I will use his own original music to highlight this. So I find that I'm going to talk about this particular angle, and then I first think of the music, and then I just place that and say, okay. Rag, Dhun or Pilu with Yehudi Merriman. He played beautiful piece, Pilu with Yehudi Merriman. And then I write the script, And then I say Rag Rasiya, and then I write the script. So so it becomes, and then in fact I use kaise then beete there because I'd love to share this bit which actually I haven't written and I remembered when I was writing this. So I was asking Pandit Ravi Shankar in one of my interviews about his work with films. He's worked in many films, abroad and here. So I was asking him about that, and so he was in the course of that conversation. We mentioned Anuradha, the film that. And then I said, you must have especially enjoyed working on that because it's reflected in the lovely music that you created. And then he said, I had a very strange out-of-life moment, a very different kind of experience when I composed music for one of the lyrics. Kaise din beete? When I was listening to that, when I read that, it was by Shailendra. So when I was just reading that song and the music came to me like that, and I suddenly felt that song was my life. How have the nights and days passed? All my love is lost in regret. Nothing appeals to me anymore. Who can understand my heart? Those are the words, right? So he brought that out, but being Ravi Shankar, he did not make it mournful. There is a questioning there, but it's not despair. And then I said, what did you actually feel? Did you feel sorrow? Did you feel frustration? Did you feel despair? What did you feel when you were composing this music? He said, it was a recognition that time was passing and it doesn't stop for anyone. I think I've been very lucky to have people talk to me like that, don't you think? It was such an extraordinary moment when he said that, It was time passing, and I suddenly realized that fame, wealth, all these things are just illusion. They mean nothing, really. You enjoy it when it's happening to you. But when I was with the song, I felt that nothing can stop for anyone. And that's an extraordinary realization. We all know it. Somebody has told you that. Even in the morning, your mother might have said, time doesn't wait for you. Get ready for school quickly, or college, or go to office, whatever, But we don't realize the real deep implications of that. That we are mortal. Basically, that is. It's a recognition of your mortality, a moment, We all the time we think we are immortal, we'll never die. Right?
Keats, one of Keats' odes, any lines that seem appropriate to you? No?
Keats, yeah, of course, it's our favorite sonnet.
Talk about mortality.
Yes. When I have fears that I may cease to be. Because John Keats was a kind of a favorite of mine and my daughter. She grew up with it and I grew up with hers, with Keats. And he says that in one of his beautiful sonnets, when I have fears that I may cease to be, before I have written down all that I want to say, then I look at the stars and I think before I can write all the great works of imagination that are teeming in my heart, that are, kind of billowing in my heart, before I can pour it all out, everything may come to an end, and because I will die, I'm mortal. And then he says, then at that moment, I stand on the shore of the wide world alone and think until love and fame to nothingness do sink. It was the exact moment. Thank you for pointing it out, Akira. It's an exact moment of time passing realization that Keats had. And on the subject, another Indian poet whom all of us know, I think another Indian writer, Ruskin Bond, has written a beautiful little poem, 8-line poem. The last line is, it's not time that's passing, my friend, it's you and I. So, these are the moments that make life worth living and make you want to share your experiences through the only thing you know, which is your art. Yeah.
Yeah. So we will come back to the body of theatre work. But before that, I don't know if you know this, but the first time I ever saw you was when you came to college to give us a talk on writing and journalism. And a lot of people that were there in that room went on to have a career in journalism because of your writing. And and we used to study your writing. So before I knew you as Gowri Akka, I knew you as a journalist and I knew your work. So could we talk a little bit about about how that happened? Because, well, writing, you grew up with beautiful writing all around you. I mean, you grew up with the best writing all around you, and you grew up with talk of literature and ideology and all of that. So writing is not a surprise. Journalism is not a surprise either. But how did it happen? What was the process for
You
that?
mean how I became a journalist?
Yes. How did that part of your life happen?
Very simple. My husband came to Madras. We were in Hyderabad for 10 years, but I was teaching in a college and perfectly happy there. But my husband came to Madras and got a job here. And I couldn't get a job in a college, so I applied to every single college here. You know, and somehow somebody in the Hindu asked me if I would write a review. And no, I forgot. Before that, my husband's uncle started a magazine called Shruti. And so he started a magazine called Shruti. And
Are you hearing him?
No. I never hear my husband. Selective hearing. So, where was I? Yeah, so I was hugely pregnant. So his uncle used to come home and used to discuss the magazine, and then I started writing for it, and then I worked there, and then somebody in the Hindu, in those days this is how things happened, said, will you write some music reviews for us? So I said yes, and then I joined the Hindu. That's how it happened. It all happened because I couldn't get a job in a college, as I really wanted to.
I'm so glad you didn't. So I think some of your journalistic work is beautiful, and especially when you profile people and your interviews of people. For example, there is this interview that Gowri Akka did of my Bharatanatyam gurus, and to date, I think it was in the Hindu again. I think to date, that is the most beautiful article on them that I have ever read. So Gowri Akka has worked with a lot of very, very interesting personalities. Anything from those from those times that comes to your mind now? Given the work that you've been doing now, anything that you've been thinking of recently? Any particular meeting or incident?
People of course fascinate you because that's what makes life interesting. So everybody is different. It's the diversity, the plurality that makes things very interesting to you, right? But actually, I think it's the ideas which fascinate me when I write.
No.
Because when you talk to, say, Bilal Khan, who was the lifelong rival of Pandit Ravi Shankar, when you talk to somebody like that, you're thinking about the idea of musicianship, deep, profound musicianship versus performance skills. So how did he achieve that? And his focus was on going deeper and deeper and deeper and creating his own style. So those sort of ideas, and when you meet writers, of course, it's fascinating because they just open up a whole world to you. In my experience, performing artists usually talk about themselves, but writers always talk about the world.
Yes.
It's a huge difference, and also people associated with theatre. I'm not talking about famous actors, film actors, but I'm talking about theatre actors or theatre directors. They always talk about the world and the issues and the burning that goes on within them, their need to let the flame out, that kind of thing, and then, this thing and cause a revolution and explode and everything, make everything explode. So, so I find it really fascinating to talk. There was a great writer called Bhisham Sahani. I don't know if you have heard of him. He's a Hindi writer, and Bhisham Sahani is he wrote the novel Tamas, which was made into a film by Govind. This was all happened in the 80s, 70s, 80s. But you should read Tamas. It's available in English translation. I remember sitting and talking to him in his room and how he was recreating the partition, not as something that happened in the past. And all this happened in the 80s, okay? Late 80s or early 90s. That's when I interviewed him. And he was talking about the partition and the violence and the bloodshed and the carnage that happened at that time, 1947, in Rich's family. And he knew that personally, firsthand. But he didn't talk about it as something that happened in the past. He talked about it as happening in the present, in India, in independent India, how we carry those scars and how we carry those pent-up frustrations and that hatred and that evil and that violence. How prophetic! Look at what's happening now. You know, protests all over India. All that hatred on one side and the protests on the other. So I find that fascinating. People think, I watch a lot of news, I'm interested in politics. It's really because through political happenings, you can really feel the pulse of the present world, present day world. And most of the time you realize that that pulse is an eternal pulse. It's always been there. Sometimes it beats fast, sometimes it slows down. So it is to understand the world. I think that's so important. And people who come to work with me, dancers and musicians, I always tell them, when I come to see your music or when I come to hear your music or see your dance, I want to know that you read the morning newspaper. Not that you have to dance, not that you have to draw a column and write CAA there. But yeah, that feeling of energy being disturbed, I think in the times in which we live, I think the role of the artist has changed. It's very weird. There is a responsibility that each one of us must realize, whether we are classical or contemporary performers. And I think the goal of every person should be to disturb somebody in the audience. To make them aware. When I say disturb, I don't mean that you should make them unhappy, but make them aware of what is happening.
Question beliefs and to...
Yeah, absolutely. You have to, because art is about values. Values of here and now. Art is about how to live your life. Right now, here, this minute, always.
Talk about meeting other people like Asabov or those are more interesting.
Okay. I don't know, I've met so many people, it's difficult to choose because everybody was interesting.
We can go beyond the 1 hour.
No, don't worry about that. And I was thinking about, I don't know how many, are you science fiction fans here? Okay, Arthur C. Clarke? Okay. I had gone to cover a SARC conference in Colombo when I tried to get an interview with Arthur C. Clarke, who's a well-known, he has other unpleasant associations now, but at that time we didn't know, and he was a recluse. But he said, come along. He spoke to me on the phone, he said, come along. So I went there and then he talked to me for more than an hour. And then finally he said, you really perked me up. I'm going to give you an photograph. I didn't ask, but he gave it to me. He said, and then he said, because the first thing you learn as a journalist is not to ask for autographs and photographs and selfies, listen, we have to maintain our self-respect, okay? And you don't go to celebrities who say, I want your autograph. So he said, I'll give you my photograph. And then I have it with me. And then he wrote to my dear Pepsi. And I said, what's that? He said, you perked me up. He said, oh, thank you, how lovely. And then as I was going, he said, come back. I want to tell you something important. You cannot write a single word that I spoke to you in this room today. I said, what? No. Why did you ask me to come? Oh, I just want to check it out, But I decided that I don't want what I said to you published. No. There will be consequences if you do. I said, thank you. And walked out. And I was so unhappy. I thought I'd wasted the whole morning. That was...
You got an autograph photograph which is archival material now.
No, this and then the other, I told you this, right? No, maybe not. This story. Then the other story.
I don't know. No, she doesn't know.
No, the other story which you might, I don't know, I don't want to spill words. I've met people across the world. John Fowles, the writer, I actually wrote this also. He was quite old when I met him, and he brought his beautiful Greek girlfriend with him to some conference, literary conference. So after that we were talking, I was interviewing him, and suddenly he burst out crying and told me the entire story of his life. but it was so garbled and so completely confused, and I didn't know enough about the life to piece out what he was actually saying. So it was a total waste of an interview, but I did write something out of that. I won't say I didn't. So what happens is, I think very often when they get a sympathetic ear, people who are real celebrities, they suddenly forget that they're talking to a stranger, that they're talking to a journalist. It becomes a kind of a monologue, you know. They sort of let
They
themselves
need
loose.
someone to talk to.
Yeah, they just pour out everything, and then you have to use your discretion. I'm not a gossip journalist. Then you have to use your discretion to. Some very serious musician told me that I won't say he or she, their son or daughter was rubbish, you know, and I shouldn't publish it. So, I mean, I thought it wasn't, it's not, I'm not that kind of journalist anyway. So there are a lot of things we have to use our thing. I'll tell you, is there anything else that you remember? I remember
Satyajit or a painter, any of the painters?
Oh yeah, Bryce Marston, who's a great contemporary American painter. I'd gone to his studio, and there was suddenly I heard, Indian music. I said, "What's this?" And he said, "Oh, I listened to Salamat and Nazakat Ali Khan. They are Pakistani musicians." And that helps me paint. And what he painted has nothing to do with India, nothing to do with classical music. It's all worlds and, kind of like children's squiggles in multicolors, canvas after canvas after canvas. So how Nazakat and Salamat Ali Khan inspired him to draw these spirals and these walls and all these, what in Tamil we call kirkals, was beyond me. But it was really interesting. Allen Ginsberg, the great beatnik guru, we were having lunch with some other artists in New York somewhere, and suddenly he burst out singing some Indian song, and he said, "This is Rag Yaman." I said, "No, it's not." So what is it? He said. I said, "I don't know. It doesn't sound like anything that I've heard before." It doesn't sound Indian either. So everyone was so excited. They started tapping the table with their forks and saying, "Thank you. All these years, Alan has been deceiving us, saying that he was an expert in Indian culture. I'm glad you came and exposed him."
Karika, do you by any chance have an autographed photograph of Allen Ginsberg
No.
lying around somewhere? Because it might go missing. I may come and steal it.
No.
You have his book,
We have-
autographed by him.
Yeah, I don't know. I have books autographed by Isaac Asimov, but I don't have. But not, he gave me 4 or 5 books all autographed, but not his fiction. His works about science. So I said, but these are not the books these are not my favorites. Can I have a book that I like? He said, "Which one?" I said, "Any one of the Foundation trilogies, my all-time favorites." And he said, "You can buy it." So,
Okay, but this Ginsberg story, I'm going to come back and make you tell it to me with more detail later. So now, let's just sort of move this along to theatre.
Yeah.
Right? Which was your first play and how did that happen? When did you write your first play and why did you write your first play?
I wrote it the year Arun Kodatkar, the Marathi poet, died. This was 2004. But we actually did a kind of a dramatized reading. It wasn't really a play. We did it in the old space where Amethyst used to be.
The
Sundar Mahal, on top. And it was more of a reading than a performance. Actually, I didn't even know I was writing a play because I was a full-time journalist then, and I was also singing. So, but when Kodatkar died, I wanted to write his obituary, and I suggested it, and I was met with a blank stare. Who's he? And it bothered me so much. I felt, and those lines are in the play, so that when a great poet dies, the whole world is impoverished, whether the world knows it or not. And mostly it does not. So, and I just wrote an imaginary conversation between myself and Arun Koletkar, whom I had met, and that's a crazy story, but I don't think we have time for it now.
We do.
Anyway, but Arun Koletkar, if you want to know, then I wanted to meet Arun Koletkar because I am a fan of his writing. So, but he is a recluse, a complete recluse. When Salman Rushdie wanted to see him, he'd say, "You can come to my. Nobody should know that you're coming, and then you shouldn't say that you came and saw me," and that kind of thing. And he's given an award, he'll not go and receive it. And lived in a 10 by 12 room by himself. Nuts. So I wanted to meet him. So my friend Vijay Tendulkar, whose work 2 plays I've translated, I told Vijayji, is it possible to meet? He said, you know how tough it is. I can't ask him, but I will ask his friends, the Kulkarnis, and see if they can help you. So he told his friends, and the friend of a friend of a friend. And you know this Polpa Karta in Tamil Nadu, where the boy and his family come to see the girl and decide whether they want to marry this girl or not. He would decide he should marry the girl or not. It was like that. He said, I want to meet that girl, call her to your house. What is it? And he was saying, but don't tell her I'll be there. So he was sitting in a corner. I didn't recognize him because that was not the time of social media, social media.
And nobody had really met him or seen him.
Yeah, so I thought some Marathi mama, So, so I hadn't seen his photograph. So then he came in tea, and then
he gave you tea. That's even.
No, he didn't give. The Kulkarnis gave. Then he said, look, at the end of it, he said, okay, I'll see you tomorrow morning at the Wayside Inn that's in Churchgate. Not Churchgate, somewhere in Kalagoda area. So he said, I'll see you then. That was his favorite haunt. So I found that place. And imagine these are days of no Uber, no Google, nothing.
When did you realize that was him?
When he told me.
Oh, he
said, I'll see you tomorrow morning.
That's
or tomorrow afternoon. I'll see you tomorrow afternoon or, at Kalagoda. So I went there and I talked to him for a long time and he did the same, he pulled the same trick. He said, I think I'd like to talk to you, but not now. And he'd been talking to me for an hour and a half, okay? And then he said, no, but not now. What we do, next time you come to Bombay, you get in touch with me and I'll give you an interview. I said, what? He said, yes, what have you been doing now? Oh, we've been talking. This is not an interview. You can't publish this. So
this seems to be a trend.
Yeah, it's a trend with crazies, not normal people. Okay, normal people are very eager for you to publish more than what they tell you. So that's how it is. So then I said okay, and I didn't say okay. I was really, and you can't mail him. He won't reply to letters. He had no phone, nothing. So how do you communicate with him?
You had to write him letters, and he wouldn't.
No, he wouldn't reply. He didn't have a phone. Okay, so people like that, how do you? And I had 2 kids and I had a full-time job and I was singing with MS. I didn't have time to accommodate eccentrics in my life. Okay, one time was enough. But I loved his writing. Okay, so when he died, it was such a moment of time passing. I felt, oh God, this man's no more. And then I wrote an imaginary conversation. At that time, Rithiman Chatterjee, the Bengali actor, he was living in Madras at the time. He just dropped in with his wife or something. He said, what are you doing? I said, this is what I'm doing. He said, send it to me. So I sent it across. And then he just wrote a cryptic line, mailed me and said, so when are we starting rehearsals? So, and there was this wonderful friend of mine, Bhagirathi Narayan, one of the best actors Chennai has seen, who's no more, who died at the age of 60. I asked her if she would, she said yes. So it became a play. And I didn't know any actors at the time, and my daughter was not here. I would have pressed her into service. I knew Anushka Ravishankar, a writer, who published. So I said, will you do, we needed to bring his poems had to come alive. They had to be performed. So I needed 3 people. So I persuaded them. Then I bribed my son and his friend, Craig, and said, please do this. And very reluctantly and very angrily and very monotonously and silly and whiningly they did it.
And that play is to date one of the most stunning things I have watched or read. So I really wish we could have had a small screening of some. Maybe another day we
No,
should.
I don't think we have.
We don't have any
we don't have
recordings,
anything.
like a proper.
But I do have. I don't know if anybody here knows Satyadev Dubey. He's a legend in theatre. I mean, absolute legend in Bombay theatre. And he came to see Dark Horse, and I had actually forgotten it. I've been to Bombay last week for an interview like this at Prithvi Theatre. And somebody, one of the persons who came reminded me what Satyadev Dubey had said, that it seems he was sitting with her. She's a theatre critic. He was sitting with her, not for Dark Horse, which also he saw, but Water Lilies, my second play, when she acted in it, but not in this production. And he turned to her and said, I believe, I saw this woman's play, Dark Horse, and I thought it was a flash in the pan. No, I think she's a playwright. I think this is the best thing that has ever been said to me in my life. Someone who really knows the subject and who did not say she's fantastic, wonderful, marvelous, but said, I think she's a playwright. What a compliment! And this is enough. All the time can pass now.
Let's talk about Water Lilies also before we move on to the other, work and also all the direction process that we were talking about. Just a little bit about Water Lilies because it's such a heartbreaking play.
You tell me about Water Lilies. I've talked enough. You acted in Water Lilies.
So I was 21 years old
Yes.
and I was sitting in her living room, hungry, and Abhinav and I were going to go out to lunch. She looked at me and said, You dance. I said, yes. Then she said, okay, act in my plays. Come for rehearsals. I was like, what? And my first time on stage as an actor was at National School of Drama at the Bharatrang Mahotsav. 20 minutes alone on stage with Ridhiman Chatterjee, with whom I had 5 rehearsals. So I'd go to her house at literally 5 a.m. whenever she had time, and she'd sit and work with me. And it's a play in 3 sections. Akila has done all 3 parts. And it's each 3 very different stories, each extremely heartbreaking, and I really don't know what else to say about it, Gaurika.
I remember the way we
reading
the Dhitiman would never come for rehearsals. Yeah, sorry.
No, just except that, reading Water Lilies, where she's standing in the gallery and talking about, her past and being a refugee, it still makes me cry. The memory of that still makes me cry. That visual, where she's standing and at NSD there was this soft amber light on her. It still makes me cry. We have photographs of that particular moment. So, I know this is a very emotional sort of experience, but that is what theatre does to you, right? At the end of it, you don't really remember much except how it made you feel, how it broke you, how it rebuilt you. And that was Water Lilies to me. That was my introduction to theatre. It was the first time that I had done serious theatre.
I remember our Dhritima never used to come for rehearsals. So I would draw a rectangle and say, this is the stage, you're standing here and this is where you're moving. So I actually drew diagrams for each of her movements, where she should stand, where she should turn, and said, Dhiman may be sitting there,
He may not.
He may not be sitting there.
He may come back with a line, he may not.
He may not. So what you have to do is to be prepared for both, and then if you're standing here, you talk to the audience and then slightly pan like this and then look at him. And if he's not there, look around and find him.
And this happened in Delhi in the winter, and I was like shivering from nerves and the cold.
She did a great job.
No, and this brings me to another thing that I wanted to talk about, which is that Gaurika, what makes her very different is her eye for talent in places, very unconventional spaces. So many actors who've come into her productions have come with absolutely no knowledge. We all have a sort of a background in dance or music or, but she looks at you and she sees something in you. And the way she works with performers who do not come from a theatre background is so different. Like with Black Lily, she used to sit with me and break down each sentence. and tell me how to access the sentence. And she'd almost make it feel like I'm learning a dance choreography at some level. And I think that ability, and she works individually with each actor, and the way she approaches that process is extremely different for each actor. So, can we talk a little bit about that? Because I don't know who else works like that, Gowri. Because you have a way of directing in a way that a non-actor can understand.
I don't know what you mean by actor and non-actor. I think we're all actors. I think if you have stage.
Shall I show you my Black Lily notes? Then you know what a non-actor is.
The thing is, if you have had some experience on the stage, acting on the stage, before you start working with me, I assume that you know how to enter and exit, and how to stand with confidence, and how not to keep on moving your hands with every line, like a policeman, So the first thing that an actor has to learn is not to move, because the tendency is to do this all the time, with everybody, that kind of thing. So if you just be still and know how to control your body, so usually actors know that. Non-actors, because they are uncomfortable standing and delivering dialogues, I won't say non-actors, I say people who have not had experience. They tend to do all these things. And the other major problem we have with people who don't have experience on the stage is that they don't know how to deliver dialogues. They make it very theatrical, and very, that old style of acting. So you have to talk as you're talking now. The modulations of your voice, the accent on the word, the stress, the pauses, the silences, then the mistakes you make, your expressions, everything has to be like you're talking to somebody, not that you're declaiming something. So teaching that, I find, is extremely difficult and really difficult. Once they get that, I think they can just go on swimmingly, because I usually work with people who had some stage experience, so they are not afraid of, they have a stage presence. Without that, it is difficult to teach. And another thing I found among dancers is that they don't know how to walk on the stage as an actor. They walk like this, this kind of springy walk. So to cure them, a very senior dancer with whom I work, not Arabi.
Thank you.
Not Arabi, but a very senior dancer with whom I work. She asked me to help her. So we used to go to the terrace in the morning and I'd just make her walk. Just walking.
No, you made me do that for what she said also. Even 3 months ago, I was also learning how to walk. You can't even run. Run properly. I'm running. You're not running in a dance drama. Run properly. But I'll fall off stage. No, you won't. Run to the edge.
So, that
and then we have videos of her running.
If you're running as an actor, you run as you run in life. But you're running as a dancer, you're doing it in a very stylized way. So you have to shed that stylization. And believe you me, it is very difficult. But if the actor is willing to do it, of course you can. I'm there on your side. I want you to shine brilliantly. Because once the curtain goes up, you can write a brilliant play. You can be Shakespeare. You can be one of the great directors of the world, Satoshi Miyagi, who's my favorite Japanese director. Can be anybody. But the curtain goes up, and theatre is an actor's medium. It's the actor who has to make the play stand and work. So I'm on your side.
No, that she always is. You call her at 3 a.m. and panic, she will be there for you. She's a Katalava. We'll work on this line again. She will go through every little passage with you 100 times if you need it. And every time she will make it, she will think about it, and if you're struggling with a certain section of anything, even with Subbers, where we work with poetry, she would think about it and come back, call you the next day and say, listen, think of it this way. So that she's always on the side of the actors. And the dancers and the musicians, the entire team that's on stage.
Absolutely, absolutely. The joy of working with in the arts, in the performing arts, if you are directing one to show day, the actor is growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. It's like, some of you know the tanpura, I think. Tuning the tanpura is a very difficult process. You see, with the 4-string bell, musicians will, spend hours tuning the tanpura. Once they get it right, it's right. And as you're tuning it, it gets closer and closer and closer to the tone you want, and at one instant, millisecond, it just hits the right pitch and the right sound, and then you get that resonance. It's called jiva, which is really life. It's called it's the life, you know, the jivan, varun, and the resonance varun. And that resonance when the actor is like dead wood. Slowly, you know, you grow and you sprout leaves and you sprout flowers, and then one fine day, there you are standing under the sunbeam and glowing. You know, that's the moment that a director longs. It's like giving birth to a child. You know, the joy. I ask any mother or any father, for that matter, holding that newborn baby as soon as it's born. It's like that. You know? It's a privilege. Really.
Gowri Akka, let's talk a little bit about your body of work as a director and playwright is very vast. You have worked with political plays like Lamb and the Free, and then there is Flame of the Forest, which is an adaptation of Siva and Sabalam, and then there is One Day in Ashada, huge ensemble productions with cast 19-20 actors on stage,
Yes.
and then musicians and chorus and everything.
Live
musicians, recorded music, all kinds of lighting cues, massive productions. And then there are productions with 2 or 3 actors. Yes, there are also productions with 1 actor, and lots of sets also.
Not lots of sets ever. We never could afford it.
No,
That's
not
the
lots
reason.
of not lots of sets, but lots of little details, you know,
Props.
props.
Yeah, lots of props.
Yeah. So, could we talk a bit about how different it is to work with a huge cast and to put up a production which is visually, you know, massive and spectacular, as opposed to working with just 1 actor or 2 actors?
The thing is, whether you're working with 1 single actor on the stage or with 20 actors on the stage at the same time, it has to be spectacular. That's the aim. Okay. How you achieve it, you know, in some ways you may think it is easy to achieve with a spectacular production which has, you know, you can spend a lot of money on the sets and on the lights, 120 lights, you know, 50 lights, and then you have 10 different actors, and, you know, things like that. You think that is easier to achieve. Actually, I'm not so sure. In the Indian setting, at least in the Chennai setting, even I don't think it really works, because I've never been completely satisfied with any of those huge plays that I did. Though rural fantasy, even today, if we do it, we will have people sitting in the aisles, it'll pack the halls, okay? But that's because it's a comedy, and it's grown. That was the largest cast we had.
Oh yeah, actually,
Yeah, and but the thing is, it is really not affordable or practical today. There's a practical reason for it. If there is someone who can produce it and give you all the facilities and take care of, you know, hiring the actors, auditioning them, giving you everything, and then all you have to do is to write the play and direct it, even that is difficult. But I don't know how I did those big plays. Honestly speaking, I think it was a miracle.
And they were back to back also.
It was a miracle.
For about 4-5 years, it was
an
absolute
miracle. And we did the most foolhardy thing ever, is to do 3 of those plays on 3 successive
the
days.
retrospective.
We did the Madras players had a Gowri Ramnarayan retrospective, and they presented the 3 plays that we had collaborated together, all of which had a large cast. So, and you know, actually they were lifted by T.M. Krishna singing, because he and Arun Prakash, Amrita Murali, and his wife Sangeeta Shukma, who I really think is a very fine singer, they sat down on a specially erected platform off the stage, but visible to the audience, and sang live for all 3 performances. And we did 2 of each, 2 performances a day. So I don't know how I did it, but I don't think I can do it today. And the current situation is such that, but makes it impractical. But more than that,
actor schedules, everything.
Huh?
Actor schedules, rehearsal schedules, even practical
things. Forget about money. Actor schedules, my schedule, everybody's schedule. You know, the cost of theatres. You know, all that becomes really, it's beyond the possibilities for a director like me. Okay, who does serious theatre.
Yeah.
commercial theatre is completely different. But having said that, I think I have moved away from the idea of huge casts and spectacular theatre. I've always liked minimalism because I'm trained in classical music, and the kind of music that I like is minimalist. I mean, with very little, it has to go very deep. And so since I'm doing theatre out of passion, I'm not. It's not a commercial. It cannot be a commercial pursuit anyway. I feel that I can indulge myself in trying to see how deep I can go with my actors, with my lighting designer, with a musician if I have one, and see how deep we can go, how experimental we can be, how much we can convey with how little. So my whole perspective has shifted now, and I cannot, I think, even if somebody gives me all the facilities, go in for one of those productions. Yeah, I don't think I'm interested in them anymore. It gave me great joy to do What She Said with 3 women playing 6 characters, and it was, the process was so much more meaningful because both of us learned so much on one-on-one. You work with an actor. Till date, I think, at least I think the play that I'm most excited by is Mathematician.
Oh.
It's a horrendously grim, ghastly story.
It's a monologue.
It's a monologue, and it's exceptionally violent, and it's a solo. And it was actually translated into Urdu by a Pakistani playwright and performed by Mohit Takalkar, who's a frontline Marathi director, but he did it in Urdu. And I went for the premiere at Prithvi Theatre. I was stunned by the way he had interpreted it, He made it into such a story of blood and gore, There was a carcass of some animal hung in the middle and blood was dripping from it. And the lighting was spectacular. And they had a soundscape which was also spectacular. And there was a woman playing this eunuch, brilliant actor playing this eunuch. It was absolutely mind-blowing, but totally different from what I had conceived of. For me, I think the difference was that I was talking about a man who reached the highest pinnacle of fame and money and wealth and glory, but harnessed his brain. He was a mathematical prodigy. He harnessed his brain to the sources of destruction, and it destroyed him. I was looking at him as someone who was searching for love. I think Mohit looked at someone who was searching for violence. There was a whole complete. So I discovered how the same text can mean something so different to two different people. It was outstanding. I'm not saying
No, but
it's
so
very
different from.
And the other thing that interested me about that play was that it sounded so much better in Urdu than in English. So.
I think I'm pretty sure. How are we for time, Aditi? Yeah, I think everybody has a lot of questions. So shall we open anything else that we want to talk about?
We can talk ad nauseum.
So let's open the floor for questions from the audience. I'll pass the mic around.
Questions?
I want to say that I was part of The Merchant and the Slave with Bhagyam.
Okay.
Yeah, it's part of Madras Players once upon a time. I was in theatre for some time at that phase.
You were lucky to be one of
certainly
the
I was.
finest actors I know.
We had rehearsals in our house in St. Mary's Road, I think. Thank you. On.
So,
Madam, my name is Raghupati. I wanted to know what would your reaction be if there is a very thin audience for your play. I mean, as a director and as an actor. Suppose there is only, I have gone through this, we are College of Engineering, Hindi students. We invited a dancer, and actually There were only two people, Suresh and myself. So, and I asked a dancer, I'm giving the answer, I wanted your reaction. Whether you would like to.
It depends on the space. See, supposing this meeting had happened in a huge theatre, it would seem empty and I don't think I can really bring out my best when I see all the empty chairs. But in a room like this, which is full, you feel a sense of warmth, a sense of camaraderie, a sense of, togetherness. I feel I'm connected to each one of you by a thread. I've been looking at your faces, moving like this and looking at your faces, So it depends on the space where you have this. Two people is difficult.
In any space.
In any space, two people is difficult. Unless you do it in a glass cage, okay, with them inside. But otherwise, I think a small audience is not a problem. It is the space which makes a difference. And when also you find that, supposing you have a huge theatre and you have about 50 people sitting scattered there, it doesn't work. It doesn't ignite the actors, and the audience is also not ignited because they don't feel, we forget that it is very important for the audience to feel a bond with each other when you're watching a play or a dance performance. Why do you go to a live performance? You can listen to music at home. There are so many facilities today. You can hear anything from today. So why do you take the trouble to go to a concert? Because you want to have that connection, right? And to have that connection, you must bond. You can't bond if you're scattered in a huge space. So space matters a lot. I think that's...
So I have two questions. One, not particularly calling myself young, but I feel like there's this pressure when you start writing that you have to be really good. So one, what is your writing process like? And second...
Stop, because I can answer only one question at a time. I can't hold, I'm too old to hold 2-3 things in my mind at the same time. Writing process is very difficult to say, and I think I can't really compare myself to other playwrights because I was a journalist for thousands of years from antediluvian times. So before I started writing my first play when I was 50 years old. So I'd already had no difficulty in writing per se. Writing a play, yes, it's a completely different process, and I can't take the time. In fact, this kind of interview I had last week at Prithvi Theatre, as I mentioned, and it was also in an intimate space like this of only theatre people, youngsters. So they asked some very specific questions about how, and so I took them through the process of writing. If you like, you can meet. If you're really interested, you can meet me later, and I'll be happy to take you through my process. I don't know if it will be of help to you, but basically, it is very. I'll summarize it very briefly for everyone here. When you're writing a play, it's very different from writing a short story or a poem or anything else. Definitely different from journalism. What you need to remember is, okay, I'll tell you what my son said. When he was 8 years old, he said, I want to be a playwright. I said, why? He said, oh, you don't have to write about, hundreds of things. All you can say is what she said and what he said, and that's enough. So, I know, same. But basically, what he said and what she said, without explaining, that has to bring out all the description and all the narrative and all the situation, the past, present, future, everything. It's a very difficult thing to do. So you have to think of dialogue writing is an art. So why do you have in films someone who writes the script and somebody else who writes the dialogues? Right? It's a very complicated process because you have to know, it's a craft. It's not an art. It's a craft. So that craft, that technique, those virtuosic skills, you have to learn. It's like learning Taiya Tahi before you can dance. It's a painful process. It's a long process. It's a sweating process. But
Gowri, I remember when we were working on what she said, you spoke a lot about, so this is something that she was talking a lot to us about along the rehearsal thing, and you were talking about how when it's a monologue on stage, one of the differences that you were touching upon between a short story and a piece for the stage is where the action happens and the space for that to happen. I think that's one of the essential differences that you were trying to explain to us through this process, and which also brings me back to a question I had very similar to that. which was when you are writing a play, how do you accommodate that action which the actor is going to bring with their embodied presence on stage?
Okay, both are very interesting questions for me because it makes me think about my. You don't think, when you write, you just write, right? You can't really predict what the movement of the actor will be because it depends on the maturity of the actor, it depends on the experience of the actor, the style of the actor. In fact, we did a play in. Victor Banerjee, the Bengali actor, he was there and he saw the play and then it also had 3 characters. So he said, how interesting, Gowri, the 3 actors in your play each has a different acting style. So, you have to know that this person may not take 2 steps to the left as you think he should. He may not take 2 steps at all. Or he may sit down. He may do anything. If it's Ditiman Chatterjee, you can't predict it.
No, yeah.
But you have to have in your mind whether, for instance, you're talking about your childhood trauma. So I wrote a play and I was thinking about the actor. As I wrote it, I was thinking about the actor moving round and round and round and round in a very stylized way as he was talking about it. Maybe the actor won't do it, but I have to have an idea. And so my dialogue has to be simple. I cannot use huge words there. If he's going to move when he's talking, the words preferably have to be single syllables, and pauses and so on, So the powerful words, things like, so you have to know it's a craft. And you have to think about the moving. I personally think also of lighting. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. But I think honestly, okay? Or if it happens late. But it happens after the sequence over. But I think about it. I think you have to take all these things into account when you're writing. Nothing that comes easy is worth doing, my dear. You know that. Yeah, what's your second question?
My second question is related to journalism because I do both. So when people talk to you, they tell the stories of their lives. And they go on and on because as you ask them questions, they will go. Sure, okay. But there are some things that they say which you don't want to write, but you want to incorporate that narrative into it. So I've read a lot of your pieces, and how do you think of sort of phrasing them? I realize that's a very vague question to ask, but maybe
I
one
can't
example-
answer it at once. Honestly, I have to think about it because I've been writing for so many years. I don't think much. I just write. I think I did go through all these struggles in the beginning. I had a wonderful, marvelous, extraordinary editor in the Hindu called Narayanan who helped me. He would edit my copy and send it to me. And then he was doing such a brilliant job that I said, sir, can I read your edited copies of other writings also? And he did not send everything, but he sent some of them. So looking at the way the editor worked helped me to train myself to write. And secondly, this is something that I start my classes for in ACJ, Asian College of Journalism, where I always tell them that writing is not imagination so much as writing is an act, is an imaginative act, is an act of imagination. Writing is not an act of imagination. Writing is really anything. So think of the potter. He has the clay. When he's shaping, she is actually throwing away what you don't want. And you're keeping only what you want and shaping it the way you want. So that is, in a sense, like Shankaracharya said, I learned concentration from the maker of arrows. I say I learned editing from the potter's skill.
What do you seek in a performance?
What I seek, meaning?
When you go to watch a performance, what is it that, how do I ask, something not of your work when you go to watch
Somebody else's work.
What is it that brings you out with what is it that squirms you in the place that you sit? What is it that makes you go back and watch the same performance again and again?
Okay, there is actually a very simple answer to that. You know the word suggestion, don't you? Any work that doesn't reveal everything, any work that has layers, any work that has suggestion, any work that has what we call connotation as opposed to denotation, anything that makes you think, anything that makes you aware of things that you didn't know. In other words, any work that is really a quest, a questing. And for me, I'm afraid I need it to be intelligent.
You mean like a rich subtext, is it? Is that what you're saying?
A rich subtext which is driven by intelligence.
Yeah.
You know,
Give an
I'm
example,
really
yeah.
not so much into exploration of the senses. I mean, I've seen some brilliant plays where, I don't mean sensuality or sex or anything like that, but focusing on the senses. I'm interested in any work that takes me beyond the senses, which makes me try to see there is something more. I haven't seen it yet, okay? I'm still in the world of senses. But I know there is something more. And how do I know it? You can ask me, all of us have had that experience. We all know there is something more than the world of material, this material world and the senses. We know it. What is it? How do we know it? Philosophically, I can say this table is not this table. It is the idea of the table with which you began making this. That's the table.
You are Plato.
I was just going to come to that. Because this is what Plato said, that the idea of a table, the idea of the table is the table. And the carpenter makes the table from the idea of the table. And the artist, why do we need artists? We don't need artists because an artist is twice removed from that reality. The reality is the idea. The carpenter is making it. The artist is getting it from the carpenter. Right? So this is what Plato said. But Aristotle, it's always the disciple who has to break the rules of the guru. It's a standard given, okay? Disciples must rebel. And Aristotle says that the artist doesn't get his idea of the table from the carpenter's table, but he gets it directly from the idea. He goes to it in another route. Right? So that I like the play of intellect. And yes, I was telling you how I know that there is something beyond the senses. When I listen to really great music, or when I watch an extraordinary moment in a play which kind of quivers, Virginia Woolf said this so beautifully. She talked about Mansfield Park, which is an extremely boring heroine and an even more boring hero, and the more boring non-adventures that happen to them. Okay, she said that a boring young woman is coming down the stairs, and a more dull young man is standing below the staircase, looking up at her. Suddenly, the moment quivers, and there's a shining drop. There's a shining globule, and everything is transformed. Okay, so that moment happens to us when we've all, definitely in music. When I have heard some great music, I forget myself. I really do, and I forget the artist, and I forget music itself. I don't know where I am. I hit a high beyond LSD. I haven't taken LSD, so I don't know. But I presume.
It's not called that anymore.
Yeah, it was called that in
I was
dropped acid.
acid. No, I was thinking of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds because I'm writing about Ravi Shankar now. So I was thinking about the Beatles, and that's why LSD came to me, because he talks about LSD. So I can somewhere beyond that. So
Sorry, can you put it in one word and say truth? I think the ultimate aim is truth.
the ultimate aim is truth, but what is truth? Said
You don't
Pilate
know.
and walked away.
And you don't know that it is truth, but that's what really hits you.
Yeah, but I feel that, I feel I'm out of the body. We've all had out of the body moments. So if a work can give me an out of the body moment, it can be a great film by the Turkish director Nuri Bilge Ceylan. It gives me an out of the body moment, and I want to go and see it again. Actually, this has happened to me more with films. Yeah.
I think
I have a question.
I think it's affirmation. There's
affirmation,
Yeah.
something that affirms.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether it's disconnected or whether it's connected. Disconnected from the senses, maybe, because all along, even as I've been listening to you from Narayan, of course, there's a deep philosophical thread which seems to be binding you as you were speaking this morning. You know, that's what we get the sense, and I think those are moments that affirm something. So even as we are listening to you, like as Prabodh, it takes him back to his, I think one of his best memories, you know. And I still remember being siblings. I still remember how he was going through it at that point. It's taking me back. Today it took me back to so many memories of mine. You know, so I think that's what. So I connect. Truth is very. Truth is elusive actually,
Yes.
even though it's not meant to be, but it is elusive. But these moments that affirm us, which go beyond the senses, you know, and
We've all felt it.
yeah.
I want to know about what went behind what she said. What inspired you? And
When I was watching that play, I didn't feel I'd written it. I saw it as their stories, you know, the actors. But the thing is, your question was what made me write it, right? I don't know.
So
I
what
think
went on behind the
what went beyond, yeah, we are all agitated by so many problems that women face today in the world, okay? I personally, I don't think women's problems. I think human problems. I really don't, you know, because I don't, look at children who are oppressed, you know, men who are oppressed. In so many parts of the world, it's not just women who are oppressed, but women are oppressed in a very different way from the way men are oppressed. They're very different. And that difference, suddenly I started thinking about it, you know. So I think I had my own, as she said, she put it once, I had my own feminist agenda which was advancing through this play. So it was really not about the Ramayana or the characters in the Ramayana or their situation or anything. It wasn't at all. It was just a story that I took in order to express my feelings about all the wrongs and all the miseries and all the evils and all the injustice. That's it. All the injustice that is happening everywhere. So I was just thinking about that, and I wrote
And I
about it.
think you said that women are in a unique vantage point to notice that injustice because they are often witness to that sort of injustice.
Yes.
And don't have a
Did
voice.
I say?
Yeah. You said they don't yes. They don't have a voice. I don't remember. You said the women are witness to what would they are witness to that injustice. At the time they may not have the voice to say during the revolution, during the Great War, something like this,
Yes.
right? So you said it, you even wrote it somewhere. Like,
I
read
think
it in an interview. So and then you said, you know, so
I think
you
it's
were
one-
curious,
it's
you
one of
wanted to uncover that voice.
Yes. Yes. Because terrible things happen. Women are witnessing it, but they don't speak out. Women don't speak out. They don't get a chance to speak out. You know, whether it's in Iraq or in Albania or Indonesia, wherever things happen. So you don't hear the women's voices. So I was thinking about that, and that's what made me write. I thought, what she said. I mean,
No, but also the fact that they have an angle on the situation that's unfolding that's different from others.
Yes.
And then there is also that empathy, right?
That's-
For example, I think another thing that really broke us about what she said was the amount of empathy the women had for everybody else. For instance, there is this part where Shurpanaka, played by Akhila, says towards the end she talks about how she she tended to the Ghandaka forest and Sita was there and she was pregnant, she was walking, she raised her children there. She did not know that Shurpanaka was always there watching. And this is Shurpanaka talking after everything that she has gone through. So I think these are moments about that play where you said that watching it was like watching somebody else's story,
Yes.
The sort of, I think this is why, because we all found something in it which became a part of us. That particular point where Shurpanaka speaks is, I think all of us sort of used to break down during rehearsals when that moment happened. And of course Tara, again, one of Akhila's characters, it was really hard. And Urmila was also very hard for me in many ways because it's about somebody who's been overlooked and overshadowed all her life. And for me to be able to access that, Gaurika gave me so many stories from everyday life. Memories that we all may have sort of brushed aside, but they do have an impact on us. They do leave their scars. So this play was more than any other play. It wasn't somebody else's story. It was the process of breaking yourself down and putting yourself in an extremely terrifying place. I think Akira should speak a bit about that.
The way time is.
Yeah.
You have somewhere to be. I have nothing to say except that this was an extraordinary experience. It was the first all-woman cast.
Yes.
That Gowri directed and wrote a script for. And in a lot of ways, I think we were able to find a collective voice. And we were, even though it was 3 monologues, I think we were on stage with each other the entire time. That was the feeling that we all had, and we had the feeling that our director was with us.
She was.
It was an extraordinary.
The collective, was
because
really,
each of us had to do this very difficult work of unpacking these characters, and it was very brutal, the experience for us. And for us to have each other while we did that, it was very important. I think that's the beauty of this play, really. That women are always alone in these isolated when they're undergoing trauma. Anybody is, humans are. And I think, that collective experience was very healing for all of us.
I just want to maybe just add something. As I was talking to you now, I just suddenly realized what that experience was. See, like I said in the beginning, every play I write, it comes from a place of disturbance within me, not from a place of comfort, not sukoon, as they say in Urdu. This is from really something that bothers you. So it comes from a place of disturbance and sometimes anguish, and you want to share that, you want to explore that, and you want to see what it means in the world. Okay. That's where you're actually writing. In this play, somehow at the end, I found that this was also about healing. In a way, I don't think Mathematician works, or several other plays, where you are left with a state of a sense of.
I think that was a conscious decision you made also, Gaurika.
I don't know if it was that conscious, but it happened in the other characters also, not the end, that Shanta character.
No, but each character finds
a certain moment of peace, except maybe
Tara.
Mantra. Yeah, and Tara. Tara is completely devastated. She's there. I think I believe many of my plays end in a moment of devastation, emotional devastation, a spiritual, psychological devastation. But I think this one was about healing, and that was what made it different for me, very different. And I said, did I write this?
Sorry. Can I have one after you?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you.
And
there are. I watched many of her plays, almost every one. I think I watched all her plays. This particular production I did not watch when these 3 ladies acted so brilliantly. And I think Gowri told me they enhanced my play.
Yes.
So when that happens, when an actor enhances what you wrote, it's a rare moment. And I've seen a couple like that. Bala and Deesh in Flame of the Forest. Akira in Night Scent. There have been moments when they add something to the play which was probably not even in the playwright's imagination.
Always, Ram. Always the actor brings out something that is not in the playwright's mind, not in the director's mind. Something, always. It always happens. But sometimes it happens to a higher level. And sometimes happens at a lower level. Always. I believe that because I don't think the theatre is the director's or the playwright's medium. Of course, they can also rubbish it.
Exactly.
That's also there, That's also there. That's a negative side. But I have been very lucky. Okay? Nobody rubbished my play. So So this one, I think they not only did they bring something more, I don't know, there's something else, I'm still figuring it out. This play had something other than what I have experienced in my own place and in lots of my watching, watching others also. There was something. Maybe if we stage it again, you can come and you can tell me what it is.
We will.
Okay, thank you so much. This morning has been humor-filled and extremely insightful. Through you, I think we got to meet a lot of the greats. Thank you for that. And thank you, Arabi, for everything. A big thank you to our sponsor, Sarangi the store, for the venue, for conceptualizing the whole event. And there's an upcoming show, a US tour. This is by JustUs.
Yes,
So JustUs Repertory, founded by Gowri Ramnarayan, there's a US tour March to April, next month. So why don't you just tell us about it?
I think you already mentioned it. We are doing, have I switched it off?
No,
Or is it on? I'm taking two productions which are performing back-to-back intensities. The first is a simple tribute to, nothing is simple, it's a straightforward, heartfelt tribute to Lalgudi Jayaraman, the wonderful Carnatic music violin wizard. And what we are doing is we are recreating his compositions with, one extraordinary thing about Lalgudi Jayaraman, which I haven't found in any other composer, music composer by the way, is that he actually imagines scenes and then composed the music. He thought of two people getting shipwrecked and discovering an island when he composed Jati Swaram Rasika Priya. Then he thought of, a deer jumping when it hears the tiger when he composed a Tilana and things like that, and running in the forest. So this kind of, and he always said that his village in which he grew up, the sights and the sounds and the experience of the village, what made him compose his music and play his ragas and all that he has done. So what we have done is we have recreated visually what he thought with this music in 4 different, and so it's a completely different approach to dance. We are using Bharatanatyam. It's a completely different approach to dance and to paying a tribute. Even though the songs have been performed by others, this choreography makes it very different. We are also recreating the childhood of experiences of Lalgudi Jayaraman with ragam and talam in a raga that he specialized in. Okay, so this is one thing.
Who's dancing?
I was going to come to that later. Okay, all right, I may do it together. The dance is I written the script for the dance, but the choreography is done by Srijit Krishna, with whom I've worked a lot before, and whom I actually persuaded and bullied into becoming an actor. So he is a brilliant choreographer, and the violin is played so brilliantly by a direct disciple of Lalgudi Jayaraman, young Shreya Devnath, and Srijit plays the mridangam himself. Okay, so the second production is
Jyotsna's dancing.
Oops, sorry, I forgot. Jyotsna Jagannathan, who's mentored now by Margazhi, who's dancing I like very much because she's so sensitive and very aesthetic and very sensitive. So she's also dancing with you. So the dancers are Srijit and Jyotsna. The music's, the songs sung by Nisha. Shreya plays the violin and Srijit plays the Krishnan, who is my actor. Certainly he's tone deaf and he can't sing a note to save himself. So the only sitar we have on the play is the sitar you hear, not one you see. So we play the cards on the table and say he is an actor and I'm the writer. So how are we going to explore the mind of this man? So we've taken a different approach to this 3 scenes, 3 acts. And the music, we have taken original soundtracks. Sukanya Shankar, Ravi Shankar's wife, has given me very kindly permission to use original tracks, so we use that of Ravi Shankar. And also the music, the songs of Ravi Shankar, like Kaise Din Beete and Prabhuji and other songs that he has himself composed, they are sung by Bombay Jayashri and Aditya Prakash, they sing it. The flute is by Vijay, who you might not have heard of, but he's an absolutely extraordinary recording genius. Okay, he plays only for records, I think, not for live performances. And the tabla is by Sai Shravana. So it will be very musically rich. And as I told you, I thought of the music in this play first. Obviously, I always do that with all my plays. But this play, you know, it's kind of, I was overwhelmed by the music and I had to search for the words. So the music speaks, says it all, you know. So, and it's a privilege for me to do this, and we are touring 10 cities in the US with it. May I also thank Sarangi, really, very, very sincerely. When you asked me to come, Aditi, I didn't expect that it would be such a heartwarming experience. That would be one of those routine things where people ask a few questions, even though it is R&D. You know. And but it was just lovely to be here with all of you. I particularly thank every member of the audience who's taken the trouble to come here and for organizing it in such a feminine space. So, it just fills my heart. I wanted to buy saris and not talk as soon as I wanted.
And you're wearing a Sarangi sari.
Yes, I'm wearing a Sarangi sari that I bought 4 years ago right here, and which is a prized possession. So thank you very, very much, Pradeep and Aditi and all of you. Aditi, thank you, Aditi, for being wonderful.